2 videos in one day and very big events. The 2026 car was finally revealed and we have our upgrades and updates for the Canada GP. We have some big upgrades for this GP, but also revisions from Aston Martin, which are much needed on the car, and we can go over those as well. It's a tricky weekend because it's projected that it's going to be raining on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and a pretty good amount of rain that at it. So higher downforce setups might be the better way to go, but low downforce is traditionally what you want on the Canada GP, so we'll see a lot of different revisions of the rear wing and the front wing, gurney flaps, but we're going to go over all that right now, as well as the cooling setup. Real quickly, if you guys haven't already, go check out the 2026 video I made not too long ago, and if you are new here, I'd love if you subscribe. It would really mean the world to me. But let's hop into, as I traditionally do, the rear wings for the Canada GP weekend. We're going to look first at the Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and the McLaren. And each wing here is something that we've already seen before. No new rear wings, with the exception, I guess, Lewis has a little bit of a revised rear wing, something they did in Monaco, which is now on all their rear wings. It's towards the corner edge, but it doesn't add that much performance. The Red Bull is running a medium to low rear wing. We should see them keep this. They've been super consistent on how much downforce the floor and the car overall is generating, so I expect this to be the rear wing of their choice for the rest of the weekend, whether it's wet or dry. For Mercedes, they have more downforce than the Red Bull. They went for a medium wing. It's not high downforce, but it's definitely in the middle. We've seen this before on their car, but there are revisions now to the edge of that rear wing. And there are updates to this car that we will talk about for Mercedes. Ferrari has brought the same rear wing they had in Imola, so they're not changing anything here. We still have yet to see a low downforce rear wing from them. Considering it's a wet weekend, this is probably the way they're going to go. But interesting to see that Ferrari still has yet to bring a low downforce rear wing. They were kind of lacking on the straight line speed in Imola, but I expect them to optimize their package much better here in Canada, and we'll get to see what those full upgrades are. As for McLaren, we've seen this rear wing very close to what they had in Jeddah. It's pretty medium to low, I would say, more on the medium side, but they're one of the favorites here. It's going to be very close between the top 3 teams. Maybe Mercedes really pulls something off with some new parts coming. I would not expect them to fight with these 3 though, as of yet. The next 4 teams are Aston Martin, Alpine, Williams, and Racing Bulls. I do also have the Sauber's rear wing that's upgraded, so I will go over that one as well. But as for these 4 teams, Aston Martin's running a medium to low downforce rear wing. This picture doesn't really do it justice. It's the same rear wing they had in Jeddah with a couple of revisions onto it to make it lower downforce. The Alpine is running a medium downforce rear wing, probably because of the wet. We could also see Aston Martin maybe add some gurney flaps to their rear wing to add more downforce if it is wet, which it should be. The Williams has a medium to low downforce, and Racing Bulls is also running a medium to low downforce on their car. They do have a different front wing they are trialing here, which I will go over later on in the video. It's an upgrade to the car and something we have yet to see for this team in specific. The Ferrari team hasn't brought any upgrades here. Just looking off of the specification that they have, it's pretty much the same thing they've had in Imola. There aren't much changes to it. We do see a gurney flap on the rear wing, even with it being medium downforce. This is because of the expected rain. But looking at cooling, which is something I wanted to go over, most teams, and I would expect almost every single team to have no cooling or minimal cooling. Ferrari has that one gill open, with that also being a part of their aerodynamic flow with their new side pod concept they have. Obviously, they're still going to have that rear part of the opening for engine cooling, but they won't need as much in a rainy weekend, so I expect even this one gill to be closed on the car. We'll probably see this through the grid. A couple more things to go over before getting into the full upgrades. Here is a beautiful picture of Ferrari's floor, and I just wanted to compare it real fast with the McLaren floor. Yes, you don't see as much, but I'm going to point out how similar the first Venturi tunnel slot is on both the Ferrari and the McLaren, and I've already shown it on the Red Bull multiple times, but all 3 teams are pretty much running that. And then when you compare it to something like that of a Sauber who's brought a new floor here, you can see how much different that is. So what the teams at the top are running in comparison to the teams more towards the bottom is completely different. You can even notice that through the Venturi tunnels, even more so throughout the whole entire car. Mercedes was a team that has upgrades here. I've looked at the car. If you can catch it, at least tell me in the comments. But from what I've seen, there's nothing specific to both Lewis's car or George's car. Yes, he does have the front wing update now, which supposedly has worked well, but looking at the car as a whole, Nothing different in the side pod changes. There are other updates, but I'm assuming it's not visible updates. I don't see anything on the floor edge or the actual top of the floor itself. Probably something under the car, maybe towards the diffuser, which is a very important update if that's the case. They're also a team with a whole bunch of cooling on right now. I'm assuming this is going to be less skills by the time we get to qualifying, but Mercedes has been running that weird engine cooling throughout the whole season, so I'm not sure what to expect with their team. But now we get started with the actual upgrades that have came here. We'll look at Sauber first because they desperately need them. In this picture alone, I already told you, the Venturi tunnels and the actual floor itself is different on the Sauber car. Hopefully we'll help them with downforce. They've been lacking it a lot. As for the floor edge, this is now new and revised on the car. They pretty much had nothing here before, and the team is now advancing upwards instead of just relying on the pit stops and all the issues that have been going on over there. They can actually now focus on floor and upgrades. We did hear rumors that the Sauber could possibly go exactly down the Red Bull route, but we've seen nothing like that just yet from Sauber. Maybe in Barcelona we're going to see a big upgrade package, but I would say a floor upgrade with also a rear wing upgrade and that floor edge is a pretty significant upgrade. The actual rear wing itself, you can see now from the corner that it's more squared out. Like all the other big teams have it, they finally have gone and done this for that vortex towards the top of the car. Another team with a front wing update is Vcarb. They've finally brought a different front wing. They've ran the same front wing since the beginning of the season. This seems to be the trend because last year Red Bull even stated that the front wing can give you about a tenth, but it's one of the most important things to have on the car to optimize the rest of your setup. So the flow of the car is very important from the start, and if you're changing the front wing often, I mean, we've already seen it with Aston, which I will go over in just a bit, it can disrupt the balance and make the car unstable in certain corners and just throughout the Grand Prix itself. Now, looking at this Vcarb update, this is obviously a low downforce front wing and not something I suspect they're going to use for the rest of the season. And I actually think they're going to change this by the time we get to qualifying because of the projected rain, change their setups from low to high because they're going to need it in the race on at least tire management, but also to just keep the driver more confident within the car. That's a big thing nowadays with the time gaps being so small from pretty much P20 to P5. Now, one of the teams that's also brought upgrades here, Aston Martin has brought a floor upgrade under the floor, at least a revision to what they had in Imola. Now, with that revision, they've also brought that same front wing they had in Imola, revised it to help with the balance in the car. It's a very small, minor change. It should do something for them. It doesn't add actually any aerodynamic gain, at least in time-wise speaking, but they have tried to add a little bit more downforce towards the nose part of the front wing, and this little part added towards that nose is called a nolder. And what that's supposed to do is basically just add a bit more balance on the car and give drivers more confidence. We've seen it on the Red Bull car plenty of times. We saw it on the Ferrari car last year as well. It's not a huge update. We've already seen that little divot that's in the R and the C on this front wing. People have given their thoughts, and I've also given my thoughts on it as well, but most people think it's a way of streaming air to their brake ducts to give them cooling. They've had issues with the brakes consistently, at least the cooling part about it, so hopefully that helps. And Lance was able to push throughout Imola, so maybe this has already done an effect on the car, but we'll have to see. This is pretty much what we've had for the weekend. Not too many visible parts. We're going to see a lot more visible parts in Barcelona, our next Grand Prix, but as of right now, it's mainly about the little revisions, and on a wet weekend, people will be hesitant. Williams has big upgrades here, but nothing has been pictured, sadly. Otherwise, I would have covered it. Hopefully I get to cover it tomorrow for you guys. Stay tuned. You guys know I make a video after FP1 and 2 talking about the teams and what we should expect going into qualifying and the race. So if you guys stay to the end, please give it a like and subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.